Corded Books presents Myth Alliances by Robert Asprin and Jody Lynn Nye, narrated by Noah Michael Levine.
Chapter 1. Not much of an inn, if you ask me. H. Johnson. I stared at the candle in the brass holder in the middle of the cluttered table. Light the candle, I thought, concentrating hard. Light it! Anyone who might have looked in the window would have seen a young, blond man from Claw, if they knew Claw, gazing hard at an unlit candle. Anyone from a few dozen dimensions might have identified that young man as the Great Skeeve, magician to kings and king of magicians. None of them would have guessed that in spite of my reputation, which was that of a wonder worker, diplomat, and organizer, as far as magic went, I was still a pretty rank apprentice. I sat upright on my bench to rub my back and gazed at nothing in particular. The term caused all kinds of emotions to well up in me and distract me from my self-assigned task. The first? Regret. I just walked away from my entire life to date. Money, a position as court magician I could have held on to infinitely, just on my reputation. A business that was thriving, even beyond my ability to cover all the opportunities that came my way. But the thing I most regretted leaving was friends. The best and most important friend I had left behind was the chief reason I had gone. Oz, denizen of the Dimension Perv, had been my mentor, guide, partner, teacher, and yes, friend, since the untimely death of my master, the magician Garkin, who'd just finished this very lesson when he'd been killed by an assassin. The second was fear. I hadn't mastered the candle trick then, and though I could do it now with ease, I hadn't progressed much farther than that in my studies. I'd come back to Claw to start over again with the basics and work my way up. How long would it take? I had no idea. What if, after all this time, I turned out to have no real magic talent? How would I deal with that? What if I couldn't learn to be the wizard everyone but my partners thought I was? The third was loneliness, but I suppose that was good in a way. I left behind friends who'd been my support through thick and thin, who'd given me the confidence to take over situations that I, as an apprentice magician and would-be thief, never dreamed I'd be controlling, let alone involved in. It was a time to strip away that protection and find out who I was. I also needed the solitude to study magic. I couldn't do it in front of a crowd. I needed to be able to fail and learn from those mistakes without anyone correcting them for me. I needed to know my limitations, hard as that was. I also needed to learn how to deserve the friends I had. There had been times I could look back on now with the shame they deserved when I had been an unimaginable jerk to the people nearest and dearest to me. Being on my own for a while would be good for me. I wasn't entirely alone in my self-imposed exile. Here, in the inn that we had sort of inherited from a madman named Istvan, and which I now more or less owned, lived myself and 3 friends. Gleep was my young green dragon. Buttercup, a war unicorn I'd acquired from a retired soldier named Quigley, was Gleep's best friend. Bunny, a drop-dead gorgeous woman, was the niece of my former sort of employer. There are a lot of sort ofs in my life. Don Bruce, fairy godfather of the mob. Bunny, for all her baby doll looks, had a great brain. She'd been Myth Inc.'s bookkeeper and accountant, and had come with me to be my assistant in connection with the rest of the dimensions. I turned my attention back to the candle. The spell had become too easy for me.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.